Hello, welcome back. Today we're looking at some new watercolors. I had purchased quite a few tubes of watercolor in the past, but I haven't had a chance to use them yet. So I thought I was trying to put together a watercolor gift for someone, and I thought, I'm going to try. I started looking at like all the different colors I had and the different tubes, and I happened to realize I had a pretty decent palette in the Turner Artist Watercolors that I had purchased. And Turner, if you're not aware, is they're Japanese watercolors. They're made in Japan. But I thought I'm going to make a palette out of that. So I'm going to bring you straight down to the desk and show you. How about now? Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Can we start one more time? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream where things can and will go wrong. Oh, all right. I'm pretty sure we'll see if that comes through. I'm seeing my microphone going now. I don't know how it was muted, but it was. So, yeah, let's start again, shall we? I was looking at creating a watercolor gift for a friend. And I was looking at a bunch of different watercolors that I had purchased. And I was looking at the Turner colors that I had picked. Now, I picked a bunch of watercolors for another project that I'm working on. And these are all single pigment colors. And I started looking at the Turner watercolors, and thought, that actually would make a really good palette. So I put that together, and there are colors we're going to talk about that I loved. There's one that I might have to reach out to Turner about. I'm really kind of disappointed in it. But all in all, I think this is a really interesting palette. And I know Labor Day, if you're here in the US, Labor Day is this weekend. And it's like the last hurrah for summer. But I was looking at this palette and thought, what a beautiful palette to go into fall with. And I think that this would be really nice for doing some fall watercolors. So yeah, I put that together, and I'm just going to set these aside because this is going to be a watercolor gift for a friend that I made. And I'm going to share with you now. This is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Everything is linked in the description below. These watercolors, which I had said before we had the audio issue, are made in Japan. So the Turner, these are professional watercolors. All but one of these colors sorry guys, I was fine until I realized my audio wasn't live. All of the colors with the exception of one, the alizarin crimson, which is a 1 star. Everything else is a 3 star. So they're all very light fast. In this range of colors, there's 148 colors. And of those 148, 65 of them are single pigment colors. That could allow you to pick and choose your palette and really get a palette that will allow you to have some really crisp and clean mixes. So on my palette, the other one had 10 colors. I included the lamp black. The lamp black is more of a cooler black, you see here, and then this is the charcoal. And so PBK 6 or PBK 7. Charcoal, which is more like PBK 7 would be like an ivory black. It would be kind of what we're used to hearing it called. But it's called charcoal in the Turner line. And you can see that it's definitely a bit warmer. If I bring that up towards the camera more, it's definitely a bit warmer. And the PBK 6, the lamp black, it's a very flat black, and it can be really dark, and it's really nice neutral. I think that the lamp black mixed with this Indanthrone blue would probably make a beautiful, like a Payne's gray. The Indanthrone blue looks really close to indigo, but it is a single pigment blue. So we're going to go over all of these colors. There's definitely one that I had issue with, but the others are lovely. There's one that I have I've fallen in love with. It is beautiful. I think it's going to be so far, it's my favorite version of that pigment. So we'll get to all of that. Again, links to everything are in the description. I'm going to move these off the desk. Somewhere. I put that other palette in front of where that drawer slides in. This is a Lowell Cornell palette. It's linked below. So I laid out my colors, and you see I left 2 spaces here. And the reason I left 2 spaces is because looking at this, I thought, I have this alizarin crimson, which is cool, and then the cad red would be the warmer of those 2 reds. If I wanted to get a cooler yellow or a cooler blue to add to this, so I had more of like a split primary palette, I could certainly do so. And if I did want to do that, I would place them in right here. So I left those spaces. The other thing that I don't really have in here is like a raw sienna or an ochre, but I'm really not worried about it. I mean, I could certainly add them in and put some in, in one of these other wells, but I'm really starting to lean towards keeping my palette kind of minimal. And yeah, let's just go over all these colors and try these out. I did some tests before the stream. I have been playing all day, just all day. I mean, the hair, yeah, Teresa commented about the baseball hat. Excuse me. I just threw it up, and I have been in the studio just playing. As soon as I decided what I wanted to do this morning, it's just been play. So I have some things that are drying so that later on I can share them with you, how certain of these colors react and things like that. But let's take a look at this palette and its mixability. I'm gonna grab the so there's the little swatch once again that I made to go with the other set that I'm giving away. So these here, it just looks like such a nice fall palette to me. I saw it on this one. Let's talk about the Mars Violet. And the Mars Violet is PR 101. Can you see the granulation on the edge of that? And I thought, I've got to try this bigger. We must play with this. So I did a bigger wash. And these are still drying, so it kind of gives you an idea of some of the things I wanted to test out. I put salt in it. The salt is still on there. Like I said, this is still drying. So we're going to come back and look at this again in a little while. But look, so I put salt on this side. Look at the granulation and stuff that's happening in that right side of that wash. Gorgeous. And this color, oh, these are definitely, this is a pigment I've never used before. This is PR 101, which I have used before, but this has such like the color is more pinkish, and I just think it's beautiful. PR 101 is definitely a granulating color, and this almost looks like a potter's pink, which is definitely not PR 101 traditionally, but it's beautiful. I absolutely love that this version of that pigment. And yeah, so let's look at some of the things I've discovered so far. Let's play with these colors some more and get our first impression. How do we feel about Turner Artists Watercolor? Again, this is a professional line. Quite a bit of the line is light fast. They are very affordable. You can get them in sets, and Joseph has dropped a link in the chat. You can get them in sets on Amazon, but you can buy them individual tubes. I wasn't seeing individual tubes on Amazon. However, Jackson's, you can definitely get individual tubes of these. And they're very reasonably priced, especially for a professional quality paint. So let's just see, what do we think? How do these stand up to other professional paints that I have used in the past? Okay, I'm going to set my little swatch up here so that I can just quickly glance, because I've just filled this palette. These colors are not dried down. So let's talk about the colors that are in the palette. We have alizarin crimson, which is, and I'm going to make this, let's make this larger for you. Okay, so we have alizarin crimson, and that is PR 83. So pigment red 83. We have cadmium red, PR 108. So this is a 1-star. All the rest of these are 3 stars. So I'm not going to keep repeating 3-star. Just know that everything else I share with you is a 3-star, and their scale is from 1 to 3. Okay. So cadmium red, which is PR 108. Then we have that Mars violet, which is PR 101. Then there is brown madder, and that is PR 175. Next up is cadmium yellow, which is PY 35. Then we have PG 17, which is chrome oxide green. Then comes SG3, and that is Maya green, followed by indanthrine blue, which is PB60. So PB60. And then is, okay, this one is a mouthful. It is called, and I wrote it small and I can't read it. It is called, oh my goodness. This is benzimidazolone. Told you it was a mouthful. Benzimidazolone brown. Say that 3 times fast. And that is PBR 25. I've never used PBR 25 before. And that was the one that I showed you a moment ago. Was this guy. How gorgeous is that color? So that is PBR 25. And after that, I have PBK6, which is lamp black. And then over here, I put my PBK7, which they called charcoal. And in other brands, you would be used to hearing that called ivory black. Okay. So those are the colors. Now let's talk about the issues I had straight from the tube. These are still wet. I just poured them a couple hours ago. So they're still very wet in my palette. They have not dried down. I'm going to be curious and I will update you. We will use this palette again. Like I said, I think this is going to be a beautiful palette going into fall. Sorry. I want to know once they dry how they're able to re-wet. So the next time we use this palette, we'll definitely discuss more of that. But two issues I had. Well, actually, there were 3 issues I had. The first, which was not too bad, I just mixed everything back up. The cad red and the cad yellow. Those had a little bit of binder separation in the tube. But I just squeezed them out. First, I kind of like kneaded the tubes a little bit, and then I squeezed them out and just stirred them up like with a palette knife right here in the well. They seem to mix back together fine. How are they going to dry down? We'll find out. I'm not 100% positive, but they look like they're doing okay. The next issue I had was the chrome oxide green. Do you see how thick this looks? And I put a little bit of water and mixed it up. That was very, very thick coming out of the tube. It was very thick. And last but not least, the problem, I mean, those things there, the little bit of separation with the binder, you know, no big deal. That can happen sometimes. The thicker color, you know, it could just be the pigment. That's fine. This one, though, I may have to reach out to Turner, the Maya Green, because let me show you what happens with the Maya Green. And I don't know. Once this dries down and I then re-wet it, will this problem go away? I'm not sure. But let me show you what's happening. So this is just some of the bee inspired watercolor paper. This is not the bee cotton paper. This is the cellulose one. I get this. This is very affordable. If I had to choose between the Canson XL watercolor and another cellulose watercolor that was very affordable, I would choose the bee inspired watercolor paper. Hands down, every time. This is available at Walmart. You can get it. My local one didn't have it in stock, but it is online, and there is a link in the description below. So anyhow, it's the bee inspired watercolor paper. Let's look at this Maya Green. I thought this was going to be a beautiful, like, turquoisey type green. I was thinking like, you know, the ocean and water. Let me just show you what happens. So I'm going to put down some water. And then come over here, grab some of this Maya Green. And do you see the streakiness? Let me see if I can zoom you guys in a little bit. Okay. It doesn't, there's plenty of water on my paper. So to mix this on I should be able to mix this on the paper just fine. But it doesn't create, it never creates a smooth wash. Like, it never dissolves. It's like it has a really hard time dissolving into the wash. Like, you can't, if I go back and forth over this, you see how it's staying streaky? It's staying very streaky. And it's almost like, for lack of a better word, it has like a syrupy consistency, the way that it feels. And even with more pigment, like, it just will not, it doesn't dissolve into that water. So it stays, you can't get a nice even wash. It just stays streaky. I'm like, I'll never get a flat wash out of this. I mean, I'd have to if that's just the way this color is, okay, you just have to kind of learn that's how it is and use it. But let me show you what I mean. I'm going to take, again, same thing, right? And just a swatch here with clean water. I'm going to come right into that indanthrone blue. Now watch, when I put this on and I want to mix it on the paper into my water, see how I can easily get a nice, smooth, even wash out of that? Like once I go over it, my colors, they blend, it blends back together and the lines kind of disappear. So you can make a nice smooth wash. All the other colors seem to be fine. It was just that one Maya green. And when you lay it down, it does. It just feels like it has this like syrup like feel to it. I don't know what it is. I'm definitely going to see if I can't find a point of contact and reach out to Turner. I'm going to let it fully dry down first. So you see the difference. Like it just absolutely does not want to give you a smooth wash. And I have tried. Oh, I have tried. It just does not do it. Again, excuse me, once this dries down and I'm re-wetting it on the palette, is it going to be better? I'm not sure. I look forward to finding out. But for right now, something's just not quite right there. So let me zoom back out now. Get back to the, try to go slowly. There we go. Okay. One thing I can show you while we have this here, this lifts beautifully. The indanthrone blue lifts out so well. I thought we just lift that. We just had our suit, the super moon, right? The super blue moon. So there we go. I love the way that that lifts out. I tried the salt. I put some salt on. I did a little swatch here. That's where I was testing the lifting before the stream. And then this is pretty, let me brush that off. It pretty much seems dry. It's, no, it was still a little bit wet, but the salt wasn't really giving me the effects that I was hoping for. It definitely, once it dries, I did a really heavy wash here, lots of pigment. And then I just came in like this. Brushes I'm using today are my Mimik brushes again. I try to stick with the same brushes for a little while so that you guys can actually see, you know, get a better idea for how they work. So that if you're interested in new brushes, I definitely recommend these ones. They are synthetic. And they're supposed, these are supposed to be like a squirrel hair. They are linked below. But they have a wonderful snap to them. So I just put on the drops of water. I'm letting that set for a moment. We're going to go back and lift. So this here, that was the Maya green. Again, see how streaky it is? It was able to lift easily. I put some salt in this side to see how that would do. And yeah, it's not completely dry, so it's probably messed it up, but that's okay. It definitely lifts out well. So if you wanted to do stars, you could just spatter some water, like paint your sky, have it done, spatter or you know, mist, spritz some water on it. I would probably do it with a brush. Let it sit for a moment and then press the paper towel and rub it over the top of your painting and then lift that up and you'd have stars. I am loving the way that the salt is looking in that PR 101, which was the Mars Violet. I'm really liking that so far. I'm not seeing much of a reaction in the, yeah, I'm not going to say it a million times because I just can't get it out. It's benzimidazolone brown. It's, you guys see it right there? It's a big, long word. So I'm not seeing too much of a reaction from salt in that. But let's talk mixability of these colors. So the alizarin crimson and the endanthrine blue mixed a beautiful purple. Now this was when I left it a little leaning heavier towards the red, and then when I added more blue, they make beautiful purples. And of course I knew I was going to get a beautiful orange because cad yellow and cad red, we get like cad oranges, and those I love. So you can certainly mix some beautiful orange with this. And this was the cad yellow and the endanthrine blue. And I love that is like a little bit more muted green versus the chrome oxide green. The chrome oxide green is much cooler compared to that. So I love that that's going to give me some more variety in my greens. Excuse me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that Meyer green is going to work going forward, but I don't know. Okay, let's paint some stuff with this. If you are new to watercolor, I'm just going to cut these off real quick. If you're new to watercolor, or you are someone who doesn't like watercolor to take off and run away on you, like you would get from, say, Core, these might be the paints for you, because I'm going to show you how I did. Sorry, I have been having so many problems with my asthma lately. I didn't have asthma until after, let me get back there. There. I didn't have asthma until after I had the plague last October. It's just the gift that keeps on giving. So I did these before the stream. I wanted to see, will they take off and move? And I'm just looking to see if my core palette is like within. Sorry, guys. I'm just looking to see if my core palette is within reach, because I could show you exactly what I'm talking about. They'd be a great way to compare the two. We're going to paint this little watermelon slice, and this is so easy. So easy. Anybody can do this. Let me see. I should have it. It should be right here. Oh, it's right here. It is right here. It's just hiding. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to be able to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So on my core colors, I'm going to use, well, I only have my Viridian, which is not quite the same as the chrome oxide green. It's not the same. Definitely not. And as far as my yellow, I can go, no, we're not using yellow. We're using red. So my Pyrrole red, I'll use in core, and then we'll use the cad red And then of course I'll use Payne's gray because I don't have black in core. And it's fine. You're gonna, the point is how much more you're able to control the Turner colors versus core colors. So of course my core palette is dry, so I'm just going to pre-wet the 3 colors that I'm going to need. And I'm going to do this with, I said the Viridian. Yep. I said double check. Which one was my, okay. I'm going to do it with core first. And because I want you to really see that takeoff of color. And then I'll just slide this palette over. There's not enough room on the desk. I've been thinking about taking this one off because you can just, there's a pin in here and you can, it's actually sticking out like right here at the end. And you can actually grab those and slide them out and take one part of your palette off if you just want, I mean, it's less mixing space. It's so much nicer for room on the desk. Okay. Let that be set to the side. I'm going to put it over here. All right. I'm going to do 2. We're going to do it on this one so that we have room. So we're going to do 2 slices of watermelon. One that is going to be in the core watercolor and one that's going to be in the Turner. Oh yeah, I don't know if it's like the air quality or what it is, but it's been really bad. And the more I talk or the more activity or movement I do, the worse it gets. Speaking about my asthma. So, of course, talking during live stream, I took my inhaler just before, but I have to be careful because I can only do it a little bit because otherwise my hands are going to start shaking and I'm not going to be able to paint anything. So we're going to start with just painting a triangle, like a triangle that has a rounded bottom. That's it, with water, right? So we're going to put this in with water. You guys can actually see that on the monitor there. I can barely see it on my desk. I'm just going to wet this whole area. I want this all to be nice and wet because we create this wet and wet. Like, hopefully I just realized I'm wearing my baseball hat today because when I'm done, we have to go out, and like I said, I've just been playing all day with watercolor and having such a good time that I just didn't care. I just threw the hair up, threw on a hat, and we're calling it good enough today. All right. So you can see right there, see the glaze. Oh, where's the, there's my rounded bottom triangle. Now, to start with, I'm going to turn this upside down. So it's like an ice cream cone. And almost went to the wrong paint. We're going to start with the green. And I know that this is not going to be the correct green because it's Viridian. I could mix up a green. We don't need to do that. This is just for demonstration purposes. And I have to really lean in so that I can see this. But you just paint your green along the bottom, just right at that bottom edge of where you wet the paper. Okay, we could warm that up. Let's see if we can warm that up a little bit. I'm just going to take, my yellow's so dirty. I'm just going to take a little bit, and that is, which one did I just grab? I just grabbed Hansa Yellow. There we go. Just putting this at the edge, a little bit of yellow, just to warm up the green so it actually looks more like a watermelon. And you see how that is already taking off. Really taking off. Core. Next, I'm not even going to worry about this. If it mixes and mingles, it mixes and mingles. It's going to do its thing. All right, because this is perfect for showing you exactly what I'm talking about. So next I've grabbed my Pyro Red Light, and that is PR 255 in core. And I'm going to start at my point, and I'm going to come right down, starting at the tops. And I have got a ton of paint on my brush. Let me get that off of there. That was a lot of paint. I have more than enough. Right, I'm just going to go along that edge, along this edge. And now, I don't even need more paint. I'm just going to fill this in. Hi, fly me to the moon. Okay. You see how far up the green has already climbed on this. So I don't want to make a bunch of nasty mud. Normally I would leave a space in between. I'm not going there because there is a lot of green there, and I just, well, we don't want it to. And you see how this is already, like, look at the fingering that's happening here as it's going down, 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 down. Okay, so I take a little bit more. I want one side that's a little bit stronger or darker. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to grab, that was my number 12 round. So next I'm going to grab my number 6 round. I'm going to come over to my Payne's Gray. I am just going to barely, yeah, I barely touched that. Look at that red is just taken off. I'm going to dab a little bit of that water out. Okay. So I've got my Payne's Gray now on my brush. And see that red is just still going down? Let's just tip that for a minute and let it walk itself back up. It's much lighter there, but I could always come back with more if I wanted to, but this is just for the sake of showing you the difference between a paint like Core and a paint like Turner. So then I just have a little bit of Payne's Gray on the tip, and this, I'm just touching, barely touching the tip to the paper. It's running out of the, the darker paint on my, just, here we go. See, with this, I would have to come back. If I want those to be dark in like this, I'm going to have to come back to do those. We're just going to leave it. Now, let's look at what happens. We do the same thing with Turner. And this is why I'm saying I'm going to put my core paints away for now. This is why I'm saying if you are new to watercolor, or and you're just like, I want to get a set to try. And I did link a set of, I believe it's 18. Joseph shared it earlier, but I believe it's 18 watercolors. Excuse me. And there too, you can get a palette just like this that will actually hold the extra colors. I'm going to slide this over now that we're done with the core palette. You can get one like this. I've linked another one below this one. I don't, as of right now, it wasn't available. So I linked another one, and it kind of comes down and goes around and has spaces here for colors. So that'd be great if you got like the 18 set that I have linked below, if you wanted to try the Turner colors, because you'd be able to fit them all in there and you'd have room for it to grow. Like I said, I left space here because I knew I might want to add another yellow and another blue. If I want to add like a sienna or an umber, I'll just stick them in here like I did with my charcoal. It's not actually charcoal. It is PBK 7, which is like an ivory black, but they call it charcoal. So that's the name of the color. It's not actually charcoal. Excuse me. Okay. So now let's repeat this process. And you're going to see exactly why I say, if you're just starting and the water control or the paint control is difficult for you, and not even if you're just starting, if you're someone who doesn't like colors that take off and have all the whoosh, and just travel like Core does. Core, I think, is like the opposite end of the spectrum. I love them. I think they're beautiful. But if I want something to stay put, they are not the paint that I grab. Definitely not for big like wet and wet washes. If I was painting wet on dry, sure. Okay, here we go. We're gonna do the same thing. So I start with just like a triangle that is rounded on the bottom. We're gonna wet that paper. Get the whole area wet inside. Okay. There we go. So again, you guys can see that. If I can show you that glare, there we go. Just a triangle with a rounded bottom. Now, I am going to dip into my chrome oxide green. Get some of that on the brush. And again, this is going to be probably so much better once this palette dries out, but we're still working wet. I just poured it a couple hours ago. Again, I'm turning this around so that I can get right at the edge. So right at the edge of where my water is, that's where I'm touching my brush and paint to. Trying to see this. It's hard to see. All right, that green started to travel up, so I'm guessing that is correct. Okay, so already you can see, unlike this one who traveled way up here, it's staying pretty much right where I put it. Just like I did with the core, I'm going to come into the cad yellow, but I'm going to dilute that. And this is going to be something I'm going to hate because my palette, see how it beads up? You put the color down and it just separates and forms little beads of water. That's what they mean when they say beading up. But I'm going to come back over this with my yellow. And just because, when you eat a slice of watermelon and in between where the rind is really green and the red starts, you kind of have that like a pale yellow. So that's where we put that in there. And this is already looking so dry. I'm just going to wet the top part of this one more time because it dried super fast. And I definitely need this to be wet and wet when I put the red on there. Otherwise, we're not even giving it a fair chance. Although I did the same thing with the core and it didn't matter that it wasn't still partially glossy. I haven't made contact with this bottom part yet, so the last swoop, I'm just going to make sure it touches. But again, doing that with core, it would have just run right up my paper. Okay. And a little extra water. I'm just kind of distributing the water around the base of that. There was a little too much water over here. All right. Now for our red, I'm going into the CAD red. And again, I'm going to start, I was just trying to see where my point was. Start at my point. And we are going to come down. Again, I'm leaving space in between the two. And you can already see when I did this, it just took off and filled the space. With the Turner, it's moving, but it's not taking off. I definitely have plenty of control. We're just gonna work this in. Bring more red. And see, I mean, that's, if I would have brought that much, that was a lot of pigment. If I would have brought that much pigment in with the core, it would have just taken off and filled that space. Which I love it. I love their paint, and it definitely has, there's definitely, you know, a time and that I like to use it. But you certainly have to be prepared. So now I'm just going to smooth out this wash. I don't mind if it stays darker on the one side, because it will look like, you know, the cut of the watermelon. Okay, my stomach is growling. I think it's enjoying the watermelon. Move it like that. It looks like that's the cut side. There we go. Okay. So far, you can definitely see the difference that we have here between how much those move and how much these move where you put them. I really, I like. I think that this would be very user-friendly if you are just looking for some watercolors, excuse me, that aren't going to break the bank. And are artist quality. They are light fast. And just going to give you a chance to play and experiment and start to learn watercolor. I'm letting these continue to mingle, and you see here, because it was wet, where I have the yellow is kind of coming up and the red is coming down, and these may meet. I may still end up with a slight bit of white space there, but I'm not going to worry about that. It's fine. So now, just like I did here, I'm going to take my number 6 round and I'm going to go into my lamp black, just the tip. Just the tip. In fact, yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't have too much on. And I'm just going to touch. It's still a bit wet. I might need to let it set for a couple more minutes. But I didn't do that here, so I'm trying not to do it here either, so you can really see. So I'm barely touching, to do the seeds, I'm barely touching the paper with the very tip of my paintbrush. And I'm just doing a couple little dots, and they certainly blend together. I need to get a little bit more. It's hard to see when that brush is making contact with that paint because it's black and my bristles are black. Okay. Now I'm just going to let and this may walk a bit into the red. It's fine. The way that you prevent that is you just wait a little bit longer. It still was just a little too wet to come back on top. If I would have let it wait just a little bit longer, they would have stayed much crisper like those did. So there you can see what a difference. We painted it the same way. That was with Core, and this was with the Turner. Core just takes off. And again, like I said, I love Core watercolors. I love the way that they take off. I love being able to get these effects. But they have a place. And you can learn to use them so that they don't get carried away on, and travel like that. So don't get me wrong, it's not always going to be this way, but working wet into wet specifically, which is what we did in both of these examples, Core will travel much further than other brands. The Turner, I don't think it traveled. It really does a good job at staying put where I wanted it. I'm really liking this. We're going to come back once this dries a little bit, and we'll do some little highlights and touch-ups to it with the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and I can show you that. Excuse me. I love that product for adding highlights to watercolors. All right, so let's just set that one aside. Drop me a comment and let me know, what do you think? Do you like, does this interest you a lot more? Like, again, I could paint a beautiful piece of watermelon with Core watercolors. I'm not saying that you can't. Don't come at me. I'm saying that Core travels faster and further. And if you are just learning watercolor, that might not be the best for you. That might frustrate you. But something like this definitely gives you a lot more control. So that's all that I'm saying. All right. What's next? Teresa says, I don't like Core watercolors. It's hard to control them. Yes, you do like the Turner. Your favorite is Sennelier. So Fly Me to the Moon. Great question. So Fly Me to the Moon asked, how do you stop the beading up? So like on my palette where I just showed here, you see, like I put that color and I just have these 3 little beads. It's separated. It is not together. It's buried. I have one right here. I love, you guys have seen me use them all the time. I just get ceramic plates. So this is just from the Dollar Tree. round ones, square ones, whatever I can find. I love these. So when you use watercolor, if you mix your colors on a ceramic plate, so I'm gonna use the same cad yellow, right? If I put that on a ceramic plate, my color is pretty much staying where I put my color. It's gonna shrink a little bit. Like if I push it out, it's gonna shrink a little bit, but it's gonna come back together in one pool of color. Versus on some of these plastic and some metal ones do it too. I have a metal one that I got that was Meeden that I used to have my Daniel Smith in. I've tried everything. It will not stop beading. It is so frustrating. I stopped. I don't have my colors. Well, some of my colors are in that palette, but I don't use it often. So when you put your colors down and you see, so same here where my color sticked, here it's just beads. Take one of the things you can try is you can take like a magic eraser. I know the dollar store sells, here in the US, the dollar store sells like generic version. I thought I had one. I usually have one. Excuse me. They're white. And you can scrub your palette with that. It's basically putting fine scratches on the surface, and it'll help the color grab to your palette. So you can try like a magic eraser. You could try washing it with, like, you know how sometimes your dish sponge for washing dishes is like the sponge on one side but the scrub on the other side. You could try scrubbing it with the scrubby side to see if that helps stop the beading. Some people say just keep using them and it stops, but in my experience with my Meeden palette, I tried the scrubber, I tried a magic eraser, I've tried using it and using it and using it and using it, and it just never stopped. So some palettes are prone to that and others are not. So if you have a palette that does do that to you a lot and you don't like it, grab a ceramic plate. I have a couple of these that I keep in the studio, and I could put the colors right on here if I wanted to, or I can, I mix on here. You guys have seen me mix I use these all the time. I have another one sitting right here. That looks like when I was doing a gouache project. So yeah, those are very matte. That's gouache. But yeah, you can just use these ceramic plates. Both of these I got at the dollar store. They are only used in the studio. They're not used for food. Excuse me. So yeah, I hope that answered your question and that helps. I know I'm wasting my paint, but it's okay. I think that this one is also probably going to stain a little. That's another thing, is the plastic palettes are prone to staining, whereas a ceramic palette doesn't stain. And I love them. I love the ceramic palettes. All right. That's drying like very nicely. And look at the colors. The colors are really vibrant too. Of course, it was a cad that I used, a cadmium red. So I would expect it to be vibrant, but core watercolors are also very vibrant. So far, I really like it. I need another piece of paper. I'm going to do another. We'll paint something else. Joseph says I have a bunch of magic erasers. I still haven't tried it. Well, the magic erasers are wonderful too when you use, let me see, if you have like these like eraser shields. Excuse me. Now I have to find one. Now I have to show you. I think I've got my little bag, here that I take when I go out. And I think I have a piece of one in there. Yes, I do. I will show you. Let's just hang out and have fun in the studio day. All right. But I had to paint a watermelon. I'm like, it's the end of summer. We have to enjoy this. So a magic eraser. They look like this, but they're bigger. I mean, this was a piece of one that was like this big. It was about as big as this card. And they're, you know, this has been compressed. They're a little thicker. So this is a piece of a magic eraser. When you're doing watercolor, let's say this was supposed to be a straight line. I can take my eraser guard, right? So you see here, and I'm going to take my magic eraser, and if I can get into my clean water, my brush was in the way. So I've dipped the end of that in water. I am going to, I don't want it really wet, right? I'm just going to blot that on my towel. Actually, I dipped it in water, but I don't think it actually got really wet. There we go. Okay. So it's just damp. I don't want it soaked. I just want it damp. And I can put down my eraser guard or my eraser shield. Now, normally, like if you were working in charcoal or graphite, you could put this down and you could take your eraser and erase over that spot and you'd have your line. Well, in watercolor, right, we can take our magic eraser. I am not scrubbing hard, okay? Do not press hard. You will tear up your paper. Okay, I'm going to come through with a piece of kitchen roll and I'm just lifting where I did that. Right? In this paper, I can show you the magic eraser. It can do some, I just put blue on my, there we go. It can do some damage to the surface of your paper, especially like if you're working with cellulose paper. You want to be careful. You do not want to scrub hard doing this technique. But see, it straightened my line right out. This lifts really well though. This paint, this color. I don't know if all the colors, I'm sure some are more staining than others, but like if I come in here with just water, it definitely lifts. So see, I can straighten my line out. Now I can show you that if I bring that in closer, you can see, let me get my hands to focus there. You can see here, there is a little bit of damage to my paper. You want to test this on a scrap piece of paper first to make sure your paper can stand up to it. I wouldn't use this technique on this Bee Inspired paper. It's cellulose and it's not going to hold up well to scrubbing. Like I wouldn't use a scrubber, like one of these type of brushes that are stiffer. I wouldn't necessarily want to use one of those on it either. You just have to be careful. Excuse me. So always test techniques on a scrap piece of paper before you dive into it. But certainly I can also take that, and I don't have these linked below, but you can just click on my link to Amazon and just search eraser, their eraser guards or eraser shield, I think, template, something like that. They'll come up. So if I take my brush that just has just water now, right? And I just want to go over in that one little circle and then press, I could easily lift out just a dot. So like if I wanted to highlight in an eye or something like that, I could do that as well. So there's our fun tip for the day. If you haven't tried that before, drop me a comment. Is that something that you think you might try? Do you have one of those and you didn't know what they were for, and now you're excited to use it? Let me know. Okay. We still have time. Let's look at, we still have plenty of time here to look at these colors. Grab another piece of paper. All right. I am just going to roughly cut this in half. Okay. Excuse me. Let's look at how they mix. Let's take our, now I'm going to do, because I have like a warm and a cool red, I'm going to put my cool red to the left and my warm red to the right, and I'm going to come towards my yellow and then towards my blue, and we're going to mix them. So I'm not mixing with just 3 primary colors. I'm actually going to mix with 4 colors because I have the 2 different reds, but I'm going to use, I just have the 1 yellow and the 1 blue, so we're going to use those and see what we get. So on my warm side here, I'm going to do my red. There's that cad red. And we are going to go, I need to grab another paper towel. I got my big brush, and I can already see leaving a pool of water. And then we're going to do, got our cad yellow. And let's bring those together. Put a little bit more red in there. I'm going to follow that up. Our blue. This blue, I think, will make like beautiful sky. There goes the bird alarm. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. Did I know I closed my door? My door's closed, but she is downstairs. We thought Tuka was, oh, well, we used to refer to Tuka as a he. Yeah. Then Tuka left 3 eggs in the bottom of her cage. And now we know. Okay, so nice muted green is what we get with those. And now let's go with our alizarin crimson on this side. We're going to bring those 2 together. So there we have that more of the red. Let's bring in more of the blue. It was a lot of the blue. And our our two reds can meet. So there we go. We've got some really good mixing ability with these colors. And I really wasn't planning on purchasing these. When I purchased these, I wasn't thinking, excuse me, I wasn't thinking them as a palette on their own. I wasn't planning for or trying to create a Turner palette per se. I was really just looking for colors, like I said, for another project. And I found some that I wanted, and they happened to be in Turner. I thought I'd give them a try. So yeah, if we take our chrome oxide green, and I would imagine mix that with our cad red, and I'm just mixing right on the paper. Right, we should be able to make a nice brown. And then I talked about, like, for a Payne's gray, if I took, we'll just wet an area here, the Endanthron blue, and a little bit of that lamp black, I'm going to get a nice gray. Pretty much like a Payne's gray. Depending on the ratio of paint that you use, you could get a really nice, almost like an indigo color. Okay. I'm still, though, this Mars Violet. I was looking for where I put that spot. Just kind of watch that do its thing. There's some beautiful granulation that happens with that color. I really like it. It's do I have it up here? Yes, I do. I have the Winsor Newton. Yeah, the Winsor & Newton Potter's Pink, which is PR 233. So this is PR 101. And when we look at PR 233, it'll take me a minute because this is definitely dry. Potter's Pink is usually one that takes a moment to re-wet. You see, that's Winsor & Newton Potter's Pink. We're going to let these dry. I just wanted both of them to have plenty of pigment, nice wet washes. We'll let those dry. You see, they're very similar. They're very similar. Not the same. Definitely not the same, but similar. let those kind of settle in, and I'll show them to you up close before we're finished. Now I have Daniel Smith Potter's Pink too, and I think you guys have heard me say it's probably the one color I've tried in Daniel Smith that I don't like. I do not like it. It doesn't re-wet very well, and it was like if I scrubbed like or did that wash like I just did here, it almost have like bubbles in it, like soapy. Yeah, I don't know what it is that does it, and it just doesn't reactivate the best. And I haven't used it straight out of the tube. That's my next thing, is to try it straight out of the tube, the Daniel Smith one, and see if maybe I like it better that way. One second. No. Okay. The stainless steel. Yeah, I'm not sure which one Joseph dropped. Copy. But this, I'm going to drop it in the description. That will take you right to the exact ones that I have. This actually gives you 2 of each. So if you have know somebody that you want to share it with, they're very, very affordable. But you can find others that are 2 sets or 2 pieces. Just kind of pay attention, because sometimes you think you're getting 2 different ones and they're not. They're the same, or you think you're getting 4 different ones, whatever, and you're not. But these are very affordable. Like I said, you're going to get 2 of each kind, which is fine. Keep one with your art stuff, and keep one in your bag that you take with you. But that is, I dropped the link in the description for that, the ones that I was using. Okay. What do you guys want to paint? We still have plenty of time. I don't want to disturb those because I want those to dry the way they dry. So I'll just kind of keep that up there. Is this dry enough? It's enough that I can hit it with the heat tool, because anything it was going to move, it's done moving. It'd be very minimal from this point on. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this with the heat tool so I can show you with the Dr. P.H. Martin's. We'll put the highlights on it. There's a little tip for you. When I was drying that, I dried both sides of my paper. And I do that sometimes because it'll start to curl one way. And if I flip it over, it kind of helps flatten everything back out. And it's still slightly wonky, but that's fine. Let's take, I do not have this linked below, but I'm going to take my Staedtler pigment liner. This is a 0.3. I shared these a couple weeks ago. I bought a set like this, and it has all different, if I turn that so you guys can actually read it, all different sizes in there. I'm really liking these liners. I've been considering doing a line and wash in an upcoming stream. So if that's something that you're interested in seeing, whether you're here live or if you're watching it on the replay, drop me a comment in the drop me a comment below and let me know, is that something you'd like to see? So I'm just going to kind of go over. I could do this with paint. I'm just doing it with the fine liner just to be quicker, because I don't want to wait for it to dry again. I mean, it would take me just as long to paint this with a brush as that just did to go over my seeds. So there we go. I'm not even going to mess with this one. We're just going to work on the one that we painted with the Turner. Okay, so now I'm taking my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And if you have this and it starts to dry on you, do not think that it's no good. You can put a few drops of distilled water and mix it up. I've had mine, like, this is, it's about half gone now. I've had this for quite some time. And yeah, at one point it started to get thick and I was like, oh no, maybe I didn't seal it correctly or something. And I just put a tiny bit of distilled water to reactivate that. And it didn't dry hard. But even if I had this, I've had this on a palette before. It was dried hard. And I just put a tiny bit of water to reactivate it just fine. But I'll get it some in the lid. And I don't mix in the lid. If I was going to mix this with anything, I would put it on like a plate or something. But I'm just going to come through and just with the tip of my brush, I'm barely touching. There we go. All right, we're going to get some highlight to that edge. Put some highlights in our seeds. Let me just put some random spots. Make it look like it's wet and juicy watermelon. And I love the bleed proof white because it usually really holds. If your paint is, or your painting is still damp when you apply this, it can mix in with the color underneath. But if your painting is dry when you put this on, its name holds true. It's bleed proof. It doesn't usually bleed up through it. So you see we got the little bit of white highlights on that. Now, if I wanted to, like, if I said, oh, that was too much, I could always come in with my brush just damp. And lift some of that off. And just kind of blend it in with the background. Never happened. I mean, that is a little bit lighter, but it's fine. So there you go. So there's a little slice of watermelon. Those are so easy to paint. You should give this one a try. And if you do, share it and tag me because I would love to see your watermelon. This is the end of summer. Let's like show watermelon all over social media in the next couple days. The last hurrah, the last weekend of summer. I had watermelon this morning, cut up watermelon and strawberries and blueberries on some French toast with, of course, whipped cream because it's cream. You have cream for breakfast, right? So there is our watermelon. I love them. And again, like I said, if I would have waited a little bit longer before I put the black on there for, the red to dry just a little bit more, it wouldn't have creeped out like that. But you see how over it just everywhere gone. Now I could come back and do another layer on that and it would be just fine. Not saying you can't paint this with core. Again, not saying you can't do it with core. You can make beautiful wet and wet with core. But I just really think that these stay put so well. So far, definitely would recommend. All right. We have a few minutes. Let's do, grabbing my large 3/4, right? 3/4, yeah. My 3/4 inch oval wash. And let's just wet this. All right, I am going to go right into my blue. Again, this is Indanthrone blue. The landscape to my right, that one right there, if that's one you're talking about, sure, I'll share that with you in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to pop this Indanthrone blue right in. See, my brush is getting dry because look, see how my bristles just kind of go all wonky. Lower, this one right here. Okay. Flyme Tin Moon says both. Share about both. All right. We are just going to put in a wash. That was a lot of watercolor. There we go. These are really, you will use more watercolor when you work wet, like straight from the tubes, which is basically what these are right now. You can end up using a lot more watercolor than you need. I'm going to grab just a little bit. That was the lamp black. Just want to darken. I want this to be darker. And I'm just mixing right on the paper. There we go. You notice I have not gone back for more water. I've got plenty of water here. I am not going to end up with much of, a completely even wash because everything is drying already. My brush is just wanting to, my brush is very thirsty right now. Okay, let's just leave it like that. It looks kind of moody, doesn't it? That looks kind of moody. I like it. We have nothing that we're going by. There is no reference photo. We are just throwing some of this paint at the paper and having fun and seeing what happens. Okay. Now, let's take my handy dandy little tool here and press and lift. And there is our blue moon. It has a little bit of a halo effect on that one side. I'm just turning this around so I can line it up and press again, just to lift right where that was. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna let that dry for a moment. While I let that dry, we did this with, oh my goodness, guys, help me out. This was with the Daniel Smith gouache. I should write on the back of them what I used. But this was a live stream that we just did. You can see this video on the channel. So that was a painting that we did a couple weeks ago. A week or two ago. I'm like, my memory is just terrible right now. So yeah, that was one that we did with the sunset. And this was last week. Last week, we painted the little mushroom fairy house, and I shared a great tip with how to do the fireflies that did not require masking fluid. And yeah, that was last week. So both of those are on the channel. If you've missed them, you can go back and rewatch them, or not rewatch them, watch them if you've missed them. Okay, now let's go. I haven't even mixed on this palette much yet at all. I'm going to take some of this Indanthrone Blue. I'm going to grab, see the beading? Just crazy. All right. And now this is really wet. If I were to go onto this painting with this paint, it's going to push stuff away because there's more water than paint here. I need to have, when this is still wet, I need my paint to be thicker than what was underneath it. All right, we're just gonna get some little trees in here. Who doesn't love a happy little tree? I had a bead of water on my ferrule that was about to wreak havoc in my painting. I'm not worried. I'm going to anchor my trees here in just a minute. So I know they're not quite down. We don't really have our ground in yet. We'll get there. Just let your brush kind of dance around. You see how I'm like, if you're seeing, I'm like turning. So as I come up from the trunk, and I can like turn my brush in my hand, and that's going to give me all kinds of different variations to my lines. Our branches definitely get smaller as they get skinnier as they go out. So you just want to lessen the pressure that you're putting on your paper. And a lot of times, like when I'm making branches, let me bring this closer for you. You see here where I came up and now there's like a bump right there. That's just kind of a natural place for a branch to come off. So sometimes when I get those bumps, it just helps me know where the next branch is supposed to grow from. Okay, I'm going to put another one on this side. We're not going to get too fancy. We don't have a ton of time, but we're going to play. Maybe this one. Maybe this one's a little closer. So we're going to make him a little bit wider. He looks a little funny at the moment. Give him time. Let him grow. He said I had to do, I've been really thinking about like fall. Fall's coming. Fall's coming fast here. It was crisp out this morning. I think it was like barely 50 degrees here this morning. In fact, I think when I got up, it said it was like 46. And I thought, ooh, okay, I get that Labor Day weekend is, summer's last hurrah is this weekend, but I have to be so cold already. And that's not cold. I mean, that's not cold. Come listen in January when I tell you how cold it is in January. That is not that cold. But, the end of summer, that's a little chilly. Especially if you're not ready for it to be the end of summer yet. And it has been raining, which definitely did not help my asthma at all. These look kind of like winter trees right now, don't they? All the leaves are gone. But we already painted our watermelon. We've done our summery stuff. We don't want to jump right to leaves being off the trees, but we could add leaves if we wanted to. We could easily add leaves today. Okay. Now let's anchor these. Let's anchor these to the ground. I'm going to take the same color. And I was just using what's in my brush. We definitely don't need that tiny brush. That's another thing. Like this is a number 6 round. This is tiny. It was great for doing our trees, but we don't need, well, we're going to do the ground now. We don't need that tiny of a brush. I'm going to grab a larger brush. And I'm going to need a little bit more. There's the blue, the touch of the lamp black, some more blue. Got some dry brushing going on there. Now, see, right now, you see there's a lot of dry brushing there. I could come in with the dry brush and just touch in some leaves here and there. That would work just fine. And we're gonna go with kind of a vignette. I'm not looking to paint this all the way to the edges. And I don't mind if I leave some white space because, the moon's out. Okay. Now I had told you I need to let this dry. Let's dry this. I was telling you about stars. Let me show you what I meant. I'm going to close this palette for a minute because I don't want the heat to be drying that. I want those to dry on their own, but we're going to give this a quick dry. because my paper wasn't super wet, I was able to flip that over. And you see, like, by flipping it back and forth and drying, it's still a little warped right here, but it would not be hard for me to straighten her back out. Okay. I like that having the the wash with the lamp black. It just kind of looks like clouds coming through, kind of above and below the moon. I'm really liking that. And then we have light, the moon shining down here. Now, let's talk about that technique I was telling you for stars. Kind of builds off of what we did last week. I'm just going to take a piece of paper towel. I'm using the Viva paper towels. I love these paper towels for the studio. I already only used these paper towels before I really got working in the studio. And I know Lisa over at La Cree Fine Art, she recommends this particular brand as well. They just work so good. I have a family member who won't touch them. They don't like the texture. Me, I don't mind. So now I can do one of two things. I can come in with a damp brush and I can tap, and I can see like little wet areas. If I do that though, I should protect my ground because I don't want stars on the ground. Or I can come in and I can just touch where I'm going to want those to be. Now the thing about touching, dotting your stars in, your brain will find patterns. It will make patterns, whether you want it to or not. So you just kind of touch and wiggle the brush, right? You just touch and wiggle the brush, just kind of leaves that water behind. Okay, I would let those set for a minute. You can see they're already starting to form. The water is re-wetting the paper and pushing the pigment away. So I don't want hard edges on those. So I'm going to place my paper towel down and just kind of rub over my paper towel. And now I can lift off. And if I would have let it stay longer, they would have been more pronounced. But I was noticing I put some in my cloud and I didn't want a star in my cloud. So I can do that. I can come back through and I can actually do them one at a time. If I just go in a little circle, dab, lift, stars. This, of course, takes quite a bit longer than if I just put the water on there, let it set, lift it out. Another thing that you can do, of course, I would have needed to do this before I painted my trees, is I could have taken my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, thinned that down slightly, and spattered my stars in with that. That would have worked just fine too. Same thing with gouache. You can do the same thing. So now I think I need just a couple more stars because those two are right in the middle and they're going to look weird. If I want my moon to be brighter, I take my Dr. P.H. Martin's and add some white to my moon. I kind of like having the cloud. I don't think I want a bunch of stars. I want just a few. And I would have been perfectly happy to have none. But because I was telling you about the technique, I just want to put a few in. There we go. That's fine. You could keep doing these as long as you want to. As many or as few as you like. Okay. So far I did find with doing the salt, the salt wasn't affecting these so much. Now, that's not to say that salt won't affect Turner watercolor very much. It just wasn't affecting the colors that I chose for my palette. So we'll be clear about that. We'll show you that page again because there is the exception, is that PR 101, the Mars Violet. It definitely affected that one. Okay, I'm getting my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Get a little bit on my cap again. And now I can just come through. Doesn't that just light up that moon? Now, if this is too bright, right? This is a blue. This was the blue moon, which I like that it is looking blue. And watch, I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm going to leave some darker spots because, you know, the moon has that. Now, if I quickly, while this is wet, I'm going to lay straight down on top of it, press, lift straight up. It's going to dull it. It's not going to be as bright. Sometimes I'll do that with my finger as well. I'll just, like, when I put it on there, I'll put the Dr. P.H. Martin's on and then tap it with my finger, and that'll lighten it up as well. I was talking too long. That dried. It does dry quickly. But like I said before, I just cleaned my brush, dabbed it on my paper towel, and now I can come in and just kind of soften that edge. And I don't mind that it's going beyond where my moon originally was. And that was just because I pressed with my brush a little too hard and went outside my line. But that's okay. It'll just look like part of the glow around the moon. You see, I can soften. You can definitely soften that harder line. No problem. So it is bleed proof, but it is able to be reactivated, and once you reactivate it, and the more water you mix with it, it loses some of that bleed proof abilities that it has, and it blends. There we go. There's our moon. I could also, you know, if I wanted some brighter spots on the ground, of course, I could certainly put in some more. And again, if I just touch that with my finger, it'll dull that down a bit. Here we go. And there's just a quick little scene. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So let's look at, I just had some hard lines I just wanted to remove. I like that. Okay. Let's look at, this is not fully dry, but you see the Potter's Pink by Winsor & Newton. Let me just bring you, let's go straight to the desk. Okay, so the Potter's Pink by Winsor & Newton here. The Mars Violet by Turner. This is PR 101, PR 233. Much more red leaning here. Like brighter pink, if you would. Look at the granulation and just I love that color. I am really excited about that color. And there you can see much better I have no idea why my phone is even ringing. It should be silenced. You can see the mixes. Look at that green. I like it. definitely some mixability with those colors. Now, let me bring up, I'm going to just scrape off the salt. This was from before the stream started. I wanted to see what kind of effects the salt might have, if any, on these colors. Okay. So there you see, that is salt in the PR 101. It was on the left side. You can really see the granulation you get in that Mars Violet on this right side. This is in, yes, the brown that I do not like to pronounce. Benzimidazolone. Benzimidazolone. I'm telling you, say it through. You try saying it 3 times fast. Benzimidazolone brown. That is this color. We do get some effect from the salt. This was it. A little bit of granulation, but not really much. This is a beautiful color. This is PBR 25. So here the indanthrene, I can't say any of these colors. Indanthrene blue. That salt is off, but you see it left, like it pulled the pigment to the salt and just left it deposited there. Where normally it kind of pushes everything away. And when you brush off the salt crystals, and I would just use regular old table salt. Yeah, it left really dark spots. That might be great if you were doing like a beach, but then again, this is only this color. With this, I would not use that. Like some of them you get beautiful, like almost like snowflake crystals, and I'll have to find another blue to give you an example of that, and we'll do that in an upcoming video. This I don't like. I would not use salt with this color at all. This here was, again, I did a really dark wash and was testing the lifting out with the water like we did for the stars here in this piece. This was the Maya Green. Again, not happy. The salt may have given us some effects, but I touched it when it was wet, so no, we'll never know. It did lift. It lifts easily, but look at the wash. It's not giving an even wash, and that would be one color. Again, I have to reach out to Turner and find out, is it a problem with mine, or is that just how the color is? And then if it is how that color works, I wouldn't recommend it. I am also going to wait till it completely dries down. And then once it is completely dry, when I re-wet it, I will see, does that make a big difference? You know, can I get nice even washes when I work with it re-wet from that dry state? Again, these were our mixes: cad yellow, cad red. We get this beautiful cad orange in the middle, our blue and our cad yellow, a nice green that was not the same as our chrome oxide green, a bit more muted. I really like that, and that's because our blue is a warmer blue, and it's leaning more towards red versus leaning more towards green already. So when we mix it with a yellow, and this yellow also is leaning more towards red, so these just give us a much more muted green. The purple, beautiful. This is with the alizarin crimson, and that blue, we get beautiful purples. Whether we go more red or more blue will determine, you know, if it's that deep purple or plum or, you know, whatever color that you end up with, but beautiful range of purples. I love the way they stay where you put them. They do travel some. I mean, look at here. You can see how some of that came up in. We do still have a little bit of the white left. It didn't fully travel, so they don't travel far. I like that. I think these would be very user friendly for beginners. And then look at the sky. That was just the wet wash, and we came in straight with the color onto the paper, mixed on the paper. That was our blue and our lamp black. Again, our blue and lamp black mixed together to make kind of like an indigo, or even like a Payne's gray for our trees, and just doing our foreground in that same color. I actually really like that piece. Just a quick, simple, easy. Anybody could do that for sure. If you want to give that a try, make sure post it on. You can post it on Instagram or Facebook. Just remember, on Instagram, I am different. This is the only place that I am not at Clark Fine Art. I think it's over here. There we go. I am, no, it's not even showing on there. Well, I am at Clark _ Fine Art on Instagram. It's the only place I'm not just at Clark Fine Art. But Christopher Clark Art Gallery out in San Francisco got there first. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with these paints. I'm going to be using them again soon. I'm going to let them completely dry down, and I will do another project with them to see how I like them, working with them from rewetting. And we'll definitely let you know, and I'll give you my final opinion. But for now, my first impression of these Turner, and these are professional colors. They are, like I said, everyone here, with the exception of this alizarin crimson, is light fast, and I really like them. I definitely would recommend, if you're looking to try some watercolor and you haven't yet, maybe these would be one that would be work for you. They're not going to travel too quickly. They are going to give you more control, in my opinion. So yeah, we also used our Dr. Peach Martin's Bleed Proof White today. And of course, the Mimik, we're using the Mimik brushes still. I have some other brushes that I'm going to be giving a try in the near future. But for now, I definitely recommend those brushes. I would always recommend those brushes. They work very well. Everything's linked in the description. So huge thank you to Joseph for modding today. His link is in the description below, along with Tara. Tara couldn't be here today. Huge thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate you, and we couldn't do this without you. And I will be talking to you all, patrons, tomorrow morning, Friday, every Friday at 10:30 on our Discord. We hang out and chat. Yeah, that little hand saying pretty soon I'm going to pop another video up that you might like to watch right there, if you're watching this on the replay. But whether you're watching this on the replay or stayed and hung out with me this whole time, I greatly appreciate you being here. We're getting really close to our subscriber goal. So if you've been considering subscribing to the channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you'll get notified when I do live streams. I do them every Thursday at 3 p.m. And I'd love to see you in the next one chatting with us. I think that's everything. If you enjoyed this, do hit that thumbs up button. It definitely helps YouTube show my content to more people, and I appreciate it. Have a very good evening. Enjoy the weekend. Catch that moon before it's gone, and I'll see you in another video real soon. Bye, guys.